Okay, so we have now a game against
Well,
Francisco
the Brazilian
Trois.
international master from Brazil, Trois. I mean,
Trois.
he was our negative hero, let's say. But well, it was not his fault. It was my fault. We played a well-known game in Riga, the interzonal in Riga, when I had to qualify for the candidates. I had completely winning position against Trois and very big time trouble and so on, and I sacrificed the piece in the wrong way. If I sacrifice the piece in a good way, I win immediately. I sacrifice it in a wrong way, and finally I succeeded to lose the game.
So the sacrifice was necessary, but
no, it wasn't necessary. But I could win in any other manner because I had almost 1 hour more on the clock. You see, I mean, a lot of time to think and so on. Very big time trouble for him and so on. Completely winning position. So I wanted to win immediately and sacrifice the piece. It wasn't necessary, but if I give the piece I told you, in a good way, it wins in a few moves. I sacrificed in some other place, and therefore that loses, and I lost the qualification. I didn't qualify for the candidates, and therefore I had to wait another 3 years, of course, Okay, so it was my fault, but now we played a very strong tournament in Baden-Baden, and it was a decisive game. So I had to try to take my revenge here, for Riga. But I told you, it wasn't his fault. I mean, he had to play his game, of course.
Correct.
Okay, so knight bd7, knight c3, e5, e4, and we have a normal line here, played usually by Grandmaster Larsen from Denmark. He played this with black, in many games. It's not so bad. It's a little bit passive for black, a little bit more space for white, but it's nothing decisive. White is a little bit better only. Okay, this is probably the best line for both, and you have to prepare quietly. Rook e1, a6, a3. Well, finally he can play b5, b4 also. White is coming also. Bishop b7, and now the only way to do something is to take in e5. Now, of course, he takes with the knight, because if he took with the pawn, for instance, after c5, white is clearly better because it has more space. Again, it's nothing decisive, but it's very pleasant to play with white, So, okay, he plays knight takes e5. Now you have to take, if you want something, a small advantage, of course. And now bishop e3, a little bit more space, as I told you before. He took in d1, I took with the rook, and the a5. That was the idea, to try to play immediately something on the queen side, and if possible, to exchange so many pawns as possible, if possible. That was the idea for black. Okay.
But here, wasn't better to play now, c5?
It was possible, but after a5 it's not clear if white has enough, I mean, white is clearly better, but if it's enough or not is very difficult to say, Probably not. I mean, the advantage is too small. Yeah. So, okay, he took in d1, I took, and now a5. Okay, now what to do? I took in a5 the only way. Because if you take the other way, it's almost impossible to win. I mean, every pawn is, exchange, and but you don't have material to win, If I took in b5, I want to.
No, but what about c5? Still.
C5 again. Well, yes. I told you, I mean, he could possibly, let's say, if he wants to only draw, I mean, he wants to defend. After c5, he can take, for instance, in b4, you have to take. Yes. Takes in a1, rook a8. Okay. So, white is better, but how can you win?
Yes.
Because if you come back to d1, he comes back to d8, and so on. He tries to trade every piece and make draw if it's possible. Very difficult to win. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so I took in a5 to have some better game. It's not clear, but it's a little bit better for white. Anyway, he proposed draw, and I refused, and we'll see what happens. After f3, again, is a little bit better for white. But in our game, we'll see how you can win a better position almost from nothing, you see. I mean, very small advantage. Okay, after f3, he took in c4, a4. Okay, now it's not clear because it seems that the position is almost even, completely even. but in reality, white is better. And we'll see why in a few moves.
You are down a pawn here.
Yes, I'm down a pawn. But if I can take back the pawn later on, every endgame is almost winning for white because of the A pawn, which is very dangerous. The A pawn and the H pawn in any kind of position, they are very dangerous because they move very fast.
Faster than C pawn?
Yes, we'll see. Yeah, it's a very good example. Now, okay, he played bishop b4. He was very satisfied here. And it seems that black is okay. What can you do to try to win, of course?
Yeah.
And now the surprise, knight a2. Now it's clear because he can't take the second pawn in a4. Then it's clear that black is lost afterwards,
So here he cannot
take... If he takes in a4, no?
Yes.
You take in b4, he has to take in b4. Now he loses the exchange and the game after bishop c5.
Okay. Yes.
You see? Okay, so now he has to move back the bishop. And now we win again a very important tempo. Rook b1, now he's forced to do something because the bishop was attacked, And now we have back to, again, to do something. I mean, we try to attack immediately. The knight in b4 is very strong. And we take back our pawn by force with clear advantage for white. And then we can play for win,
Yeah.
So after knight b4, he had to protect the pawn from c6. Now we took back our pawn, of course.
Yeah.
And he played rook a8, and now knight d3. Now everything is clear. We took back our pawn. Our position is clearly better. We have advantage. We have the initiative, and we have more time to think. So it's clear that white has all the chances to try to play for a win, Every endgame is very unpleasant for black, you see, here already. So bishop, he doesn't want to give immediately the central pawn e5 because he's very dangerous, almost winning for white, of course. So he tries to protect the pawn in e5. Now you have to do something very precise. I mean, to show that white is coming, you see. The a pawn, we still have the a pawn. We have the initiative, and the position is very unpleasant in any case for black, in any position. So after knight e8, we have time to attack the rook and to advance the pawn. And it's enough, we have time to do something. So, okay, rook a7, bishop c3, again very good. We attack the pawn. Now the last hope to do something immediately on the other side to try to have a counterplay with c5, you see. But it's always a little bit too late. Now bishop d5 is decisive because now you have to move the rook. We attack the rook. You don't have time to take in a4 because you lose the whole rook.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you move the rook, you lose the central pawn. In meantime, we advance the pawn, for any endgame, you see. If we arrive with the pawn in a6, for instance, he can resign in a few moves. So knight c7, and now bishop back, of course. You see, the position is clear, completely, complete defensive for black. Black has to, to try to resist in this very unpleasant position, but it's almost impossible. He has too many weaknesses. The pawn c5 is weak, the pawn e5 is weak, the pawn a5 is very strong, and we have an idea to come with the rook in b6 or later on in b7, you see. After a6 and rook b7. Probably the position was already lost. So he tries to, to give a pawn for some counterplay, that is too late. So now bishop takes, he has to take with the knight, and now we have the endgame. We took the pawn, and we have winning endgame. So he tries to resist, but if the technique is good, for white is winning in any case. But you have to be a little bit careful. Knight d4, okay, bishop f2, rook a8. Okay, he gives the pawn. I mean, we still have the a pawn, and any endgame is, very easy winning because we have time to come with the king in f2 or in f1, d2, d3. If we arrive with the king in d3, we can resign in any endgame, So the game was like this: d3, king f2, and now rook d5, the best. And now, of course, he has to take in d5, otherwise he loses the second pawn. And now we take, and the rest is technique, I mean, he could resign already here, but he was in very big time trouble. King e2, queen takes, and now a6 has to take, king there, rook d8, a7, rook there, and king d3, and black resigned. It's very easy. The king comes to b6 and b7, and of course, finished. But, the endgame was very clear and very easy, but before was a little bit complicated because the advantage was small, and what white has to demonstrate how to win with a very small edge. I mean, clear advantage, but very difficult to win. So you have to show a very good technique. So finally, I took the revenge a little bit late, but better later than never, because like this, I was able to win finally the very strong tournament from Baden Baden. It was very good personal success.
You won this tournament also
Yeah.
because of this game.
Wow.
Nice. Thank you, Mr. Gheorghiu.
You're welcome.